special song I wrote. It was a little while ago. If any of you came to my panel last year, I played it there, but since I have a wider audience, I'd like to play it here as well. It's the best song I've ever written, in my opinion, and it's also the only song I've written where I animated the music video. So everything you see, hear, touch, smell, I basically did, except I didn't make the models, and my friend Kenji mastered the song, which just means he made it sound fuller. This is the song, and then after this, I'll see how we're doing on time. If we have time to do a quick Q&A, we will. If not, I'll go ahead and do the prizes. Okay, guys? Okay. And also, I want to warn you, this song is very sad. If anybody cries, I'm not even joking. Every time I played this, there's been some person who's like inconsolable. I brought tissues. Okay. But no, I didn't just bring them for you. I brought them for me because my nose is a little. So we're gonna start it. Caring is caring.
How to cure all wounds.
Don't worry.
Something I can testify, and then I to one who need me alone. Just a single song and dance you've heard before. You would like to stare you down, and from the accusation from you on, we crying would be that you left time within me, if that's alright. There's no way that I can say that we would have ended up this way if I'm taking time to let you know down there. But if I have to lay down, I can tell you I was just the same. It was never for letting go. So I need you that you and I will set you free to live your life in a place far away from me. My only wish will be that she'll make you happy as you move on to a place far away from me. Never yet fancies clear. They are dreams that kept you here. Now I've seen through. There's nothing I can do to make you stay. Someone take you with my ear. Behind iron bars to keep you away. And these weapons looked waiting for a better start. There's no way that I can say that we would have ended up this way if I'm taking time to let you know down there. But if you have to lay down, I can tell you I was just the same. I should have never let you go. But I need you that you and I will set you free to live your life in a place far away from me. My only wish will be that she'll make you happy as you move on to a place far away from
Does anybody need a tissue? Like seriously, do you need a tissue? I do have some. I'm not even joking.
You almost got me.
If you need a tissue, come up and get a tissue so I can point at you and laugh. The feels. For those of you who are not familiar with my work, that song song is actually a direct sequel to a song I wrote called Rose Plus Thorn.
That was the end.
And it's part of this album called Three Hearts, where it tells a story, and at the end, Kaito dies. Spoiler! It's not a spoiler because I say on the actual album page that Kaito dies at the end, because I give the entire synopsis. So if you guys are interested in learning that series, because all I told you is Kaito dies, you don't know what happened.
You could have murdered, you could have gotten into a car accident.
See, you just don't know. So if you would like to get that album again, my table is down in the Arts Alley, U23. I'm in the back. And I have even more Vocaloid CDs there available. We have a little bit of time for maybe about, I'm going to start closing up, but we have time for maybe 3 questions. So, or maybe more, both depending upon how long the question is. So, security.
What is your opinion on MMD?
MMD, I love it. Well, that was made with MMD.
I know that.
MMD is an absolutely fantastic program. For those of you who don't know what it stands for Miku Miku Dance. It is a program that allows people who use it to create animations like that. It's free. The models, almost all the models you can get for it are free. If you're an aspiring animator and you don't have the money to buy a fancy animation program, start with MMD. Try it out.
I have a question first, Carter. First off, Echo and Cowlini are my favorite.
Thank you.
But I,
Your cosmos.
thank
Sorry.
you. But I was wondering about Cyber Diva, like if you're able to answer any questions, like
I can answer I'll answer what I can answer.
like is she capable of attaining like the growl feature?
Well, let me just say off really quick that I just got a new computer and I got it on Thursday, and I have my other one I've been working on for the past couple of years. It's actually been like a 2007 Vista, so I have version 4 has not worked yet. But since I do work with Circus P, he actually has done some demonstrations with Cyber Diva using the growl function, and she's a pop Vocaloid. She's supposed to sing pop music, and so she can do it, but it's not my personal preference for her. But it depends on, like, more people need to use growls more before I can really form a definite opinion with her. But I think she sounds okay-ish, kind of.
That's the great thing about Vocaloid is that each voice bank, it just depends on the skills of the user. So if you make rock music and you want to use a particular Vocaloid, go for it. Use as many skills as you are able to acquire to make that Vocaloid work for you. The sky is the limit.
Yeah.
Do we have another question? You stood up, you're really eager. So.
Yes. I play Dance Dance Revolution, and I want to know if any more Vocaloid songs might end up going into a new Dance Dance Revolution game.
I didn't even know that there was a Vocaloid song in Dance Dance.
There is
Which
Magnet.
really? Oh my gosh, why didn't nobody tell me this? I don't know. It's possible. It all depends on the popularity of the song. Shut up. Don't you. Now there are games where you can input a song that you like and make your own dance. I don't know if any new. Do you know something? Nothing that she can tell. I don't know anything. Obviously. So anything is possible. Again, we just have to show that we want it. So if we show we want it, anything is possible.
Yay!
Purple lip again.
How do you feel about the special prize Vocaloids like Gallico, Eculoid?
Eculoid, I don't think Eculoid was ever a prize. I think that was just something that his family did.
Yeah, it was
Gallico is now released for everybody. You can now buy her. I will tell you that when I had got her as a prize, and I loved her, and I think Circus P also got her as a prize because we both done the 3 songs, and I loved her. She was a little interesting, but then when her license expired, we were like, what? Because we thought we were going to get to keep that as a free Vocaloid. But then they were like, haha, no, you see what we meant was that you get to experience her at first and then we'll release her later. And we were like,
wait, really?
Yeah, Evan, I think they said that after the fact. Some people are saying that they said that from the beginning.
I didn't even try.
I call BS on that personally, but I don't know.
That wouldn't surprise me. Sorry.
Yes, great.
What do you think about the people taking like the anime characters and making them into Vocaloid, like Talioin and I think it's one for Attack on Titan, things like that, like taking characters from animes and making them into Vocaloid?
Like more like, you know how it takes samples of their voices?
Oh, you mean like
and stick
taking
them
the
into
samples
their
of that? Oh, see, they don't do that in Vocaloid, they do that in Utao. Utao you can get samples of anything pretty much and make a voice of it. As somebody who works with this stuff professionally, I have to say I don't really approve because you're not getting that person's consent. As long as you're not distributing that voice bank, I guess you're not hurting anybody, but I don't really approve of it. Miss, did you have something to say?
Yeah, it's basically, there's two ways of doing that, and one of them is Utahu, and I have seen some ones in Utahu, and that's the questionable one. Another thing people will do is they'll take the samples and they'll use like
Melodyne.
or
Yeah.
Autotune or like pitch bending software.
Melodyne
and do it by hand.
Right. Melodyne and Autotune are fine, and because
Yeah, so
if anything you're
voice
paying
is
homage.
just literally stringing the samples.
But if you're just taking those samples without their permission and making an entire voice bank, that's a little bit more, that's a little bit more questionable. Lady in the back in black with the scarf, you had your hand up.
I was wondering, both of you guys, what is your website name?
My YouTube is, you're either going to find me under Aki Glancy or Empath P. Again, I have my card downstairs. If you want to just get my card, it has all my links on it. Sian, what's your links?
Sorry, okay, so we're kind of working on the Sir Crush website right now, but it's going to be sircrush.rocks. But if you want to find me, just look up Crusher P, just look up Gumi Echo, just look up like Rugrats Theory, look up Calla Linney, look up Vocaloid, and it's probably going to be somewhere in the first couple of weeks. I'm sorry? Yeah, I did. Well, yeah. I used to be Childhood Crusher, but now I'm just Crusher.
How did you hurt it? No, I'm teasing.
5,000 views. Okay.
No. Yes.
What's with the I'm kind of like new to Vocaloid. What's with the Black Rock Shooter?
Black Rock Shooter, okay, there's a long story. I'm going to try to condense it. Black Rock Shooter was a character created by an illustrator named Puke. Rio, did you say Ro or Ro? Supercell. Saw the picture, really liked it, was like, hey, can I write a song based off of that character? And Puke was like, sure, I'll even do the PV for you. So they did a PV, and everybody was like, oh, it's Miku as this weird, awesome character, and now they're making an anime based off Miku. It's like, no, it was a character first, created by an illustrator. Miku was really popular, was doing the boon. Supercell became really famous for his Vocaloid songs, wrote a song about her. And then afterwards, companies contacted Puke and wanted to know about, the character and stuff. And from then, we got all the other stuff coming from it.
And his art is very iconic. If you know Steins Gate, he also did that. Design.
You have other illustrators that got their who were illustrators before, but then kind of got boosted with Vocaloid, such as Red Juice, who designed all the characters from Guilty Crown. And Supercell did the opening.
Yay!
And the ending.
And
Alice, I think you're Alice. Are you Alice?
Even though you're shy, we love you
I know which one he is. No, I'm joking. I also have a Circus P album that I produced for him for sale downstairs. If you want a Circus P CD,
yay! Go
give me your money.
or that.
Okay, all right. We only have 5 minutes left. I'm going to do. If you have another question, either grab us outside the room or come down to my table. We're going to do the prizes really, really, really quick. I only have a few copies left of the free CD. If anybody wants a free CD, come and get it, but only while supplies last.
I do.
Okay? Didn't you already have? You get one later.
Okay.
I'll send you one.
Wait.
Aki,
Maybe I do have one.
Oh, Cian, would you put?
I didn't see where you
Make sure there's nothing. The
What am I doing?
Put those things in that box.
This?
Okay. Yeah, those.
Okay.
And again, if you already won a prize in my last panel, you cannot win a prize in this one. I'm very sorry, but I have to be fair.
Thank you. Awesome. I love your passport.
Okay, so. I don't need these to read. Oh, that's for circus, and then this is for you, by the way. Merry Christmas.
That was all right. I'm sorry.
So the first prize is an Insanity Miki keychain based off Circus P's song Insanity. So we got 203 4228.
Oh, that's not this number. I think you need to reread it. That's my ticket, and that's not.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding. No, I was a joke. Because some people may have walked out.
Okay. Well, did anybody have it?
Two
Okay.
of you. Don't ruin his chances of having something happy. You don't get anything.
Don't crush people's hopes.
I give you stuff all the
I'm
time.
gonna crush her. I'm supposed to crush everybody's hopes.
That was a joke.
Yeah, I got it. Wait,
Crush my
good job.
childhood.
That's a collaboration.
Next is, do I have more? I need to have a few more things. Next is an Ivana Rose Plus Thorn phone charm. 203-4208.
The camera's not over yet.
All right, quick poll. Hands only. You don't need lots of shouting and adding your own 2 cents at this point. But who has seen Kill la Kill? Good, because we're going to spoil some stuff.
If you're not okay with that, please leave.
Who thinks it has a positive feminist message? Who's seeing like 2/3 of those hands, maybe half of those hands that were originally up?
Who thinks it has a negative feminist message? Those numbers are decreasing with each time we do this panel, which makes me a little bit happy.
Down to 2.
And who is kind of undecided?
Yeah. So like 1/3 to half of you are kind of not sure. And that's natural because Kill la Kill is one of those shows that is towing the line into ambiguity. But that's part of why we really love it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay.
Okay, so we're moving on from our awesome title screen to our disclaimers. Because Kill la Kill and because feminism is usually a hot topic, this is basically just a everybody please be nice kind of thing. What we say is not fact, it's just what we think. I think I'm right, but you might not agree with me, and that's fine. I don't hate you, yeah, everybody be good. That's basically it.
Place of mutual respect, so on and so forth, yada yada. And another part of our disclaimer is that we're operating this panel off of our idea of what feminism is. And
Yeah,
so we're
that's
going to go
important.
ahead and define where we're working from here.
Feminism is wanting equality for all people regardless of gender, but with the understanding that there is currently an imbalance with women on this side and men way up here. That's our definition.
And we're not going to get into the minutia about like, oh, well, men have it harder this way and men have it easier this way, and women have it harder this way and women have it easier this way. We're not going to get to minutia. It's just the basic principle. Okay?
Yep, deal with it. Okay. And the last disclaimer is, although Kill la Kill is a Japanese show, and what it may mean to feminism in Japan might be important, but my research on feminism in Japan has been very difficult. It's not a huge movement over there, as I'm sure several of you know. It's very different there, and frankly, most of the complaints I've heard about the show, about how it applies to feminism, have come from the American and Western side. So most of the things we'll be addressing are American feminist views and addressing American complaints. I just want to get that out there. No disrespect to the Japanese. I would love to know more, and I'm still working on that.
From friends we have who are Japanese or who have been to Japan and things that we've read, our understanding is that Japan, while it likes to live vicariously through anime and imagine other things, they are a culture of a lot of pressure for conformity. And that being said, even if there are women who might really like Western-style feminism, they feel pressured not to pursue it because then you become... They have the saying, the nail that stands up gets hammered down. So it is shameful in many regards to try and go for social reforms.
Yeah, basically don't rock the boat is a big thing over there.
So that being said, we have a very hard time finding out what women's opinions of Kill la Kill are because there isn't even a very big feminist movement that's very vocal. There is one, but it's quiet, it's quashed down. Japan doesn't give social programs any government assistance, for example, like civil rights programs, that is.
Also, we don't speak Japanese, and that hinders a lot of research.
Yeah. So those are our infos, but it also gives you a little bit of context for where this lack of information might be coming from.
So, the panel's going to be divided into 3 categories. Things about Kill la Kill that we find not feminist and or downright offensive from a feminist perspective. Things that are debatable, that would probably take the longest to discuss. And things that we think are totes feminist. It's a good word. We're given the times, totes. Moving on.
All right, more background information. Woo! Who's familiar with Trigger? Hands again. All right. Trigger's history before Kill la Kill, I mean. All right, so we've got about half those hands.
Understanding what a show means to its audience is so much easier when you know the history of the show, right down to the history of the studio and its creators. So we're going to teach you a little bit about Trigger.
Next slide.
All right, here's some of the history of Trigger's creators. And these were made before Trigger was formed by a studio called Gainax.
Two guys from Studio Gainax, Imaishi and Otsuka, went on to form Studio Trigger not too long ago, only a few years. And before Kill la Kill came out, they only really had one notable title. That would be Little Witch Academia. They have other ones like like Inferno Cop. As you can see, that show only has one fan. All right, two.
One and a half.
Take that person down to half a person. That's not nice. All right, so we've got Evangelion, which rocks the boat in terms of the entire giant robot genre, the entire shonen genre. It was a deconstruction to the nth degree. You guys know what deconstruction is?
Yes. Yeah, they know. They've all seen a lot of that.
All right. For the 1.5 of you in here who do not, a deconstruction is when they basically take something that everybody knows and then they take it apart and build it up in a more realistic and usually darker sense.
Pretty much, and that's what Evangelion did to the giant robot genre. The giant robot genre took years to recover from Evangelion with lots of copycats and other attempts at doing what Eva did. Studio Gainax made anime history with Evangelion, and they have a lot of other notable titles too. Everyone recognizes Panty and Stocking by now. I've seen at least 16 cosplayers per day of the two of them. And Gurren Lagann, which came even later, and was the first thing that Imaishi directed himself. You could say rebuilt the giant robot genre and returned it to what it originally was,
More
turned
like
up to
Pierce the
11,000. Say what?
More like Pierce the Heavens.
Exactly. Just like that. Knowing that Gurren Lagann was Imaishi's first directorial debut is very important because the similarities between it and Kill la Kill tonally are very painfully obvious.
Down to having a lot of the same artists, musical artists working on it.
Mm-hmm. Its explosive nature really shows in Kill la Kill.
But you don't look at that and think, magical girl show, but that's what it is.
Partially, at least. So, Kill la Kill made waves as soon as it showed up. Its pace never slowed down. Its animation was all over the place. It turned everything all the way up.
And what was it turning up? A lot of old stuff. These guys have been in the industry for a really long time. We're going back to the 70s and 80s. They are playing on so many 80s tropes that they loved that had kind of died out for the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, got a lot of old fans to start watching the show.
Speaking of, do you want to mention Daikon?
No.
Okay. But there's the, for example, the Mankan Shoku family, right? When they were asked, what were you thinking when you designed those? They said, well, we just picked out every single cliche and stereotype and trope associated with the family in the 80s. And we put them all in that family.
So yeah, they were deliberately trying to harken back to that time to try and get us at us old people. And it works.
Yeah, anybody seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Yeah, you get a lot of that feeling in the costume designs here, the extreme... Gamagori is pretty much JoJo's Bizarre Adventure encapsulated in one character, right?
So one of the things that Kill la Kill sparked among fan communities, at least in the West, was its portrayal of women. I remember the first time I watched it, and it zooms in through Honoji Academy and shows the whole battle school setup. I was like, yes, yes, yes! Show me more! Really great! Ryoko transforms. No, don't do this to me. No, I don't want to hate you. No. So I'm not the only person who had that view. We're gonna start with the things that are downright offensive, and the first thing I think anybody here would probably mention is the outfits, because they're the look at. They're the first thing people think of when they think of this show.
I can't think of anything that's outdone that underboob. and to be honest, underboob is way raunchier than above cleavage, right?
Yeah, Michael thought so.
Yeah.
To the uninitiated, looking at these outfits would instantly turn many people away, and they would form an opinion about the show immediately. That doesn't mean that's a good idea, but it is worth mentioning.
It just kind of rang of Sucker Punch for a moment, and that concerns me a lot.
Why would you mention that movie?
Because
just let it die.
We don't have any disagreement.
There's somebody who's never heard of it. Don't even.
know what's wrong.
So, we're going to get back to the outfits, but we're also going to cover other things that we believe are unforgivable from a feminist standpoint, and that kind of need to die from the anime spectrum entirely.
this is the one that we feel the most intense about, because
rape isn't funny. Never. I don't care if it didn't really happen. I don't care if it's implied. I don't care if you're pretending somebody's getting raped and they're not really. It's not funny.
Go up, really angry to the creators, they probably would just brush it off as, well, again, we were just paying homage to all the stuff from the 80s, because rape jokes were so 80s anime. You see them all over the place. Anybody watch the original Dragon Ball? It's like 80% rape jokes.
And those weren't funny either.
No, they weren't.
Also exploitation jokes, Ryuko's body being shown off by accident. That one scene with Mako's dad hanging over her when she first meets him.
That one was
almost
the
made me
worst.
turn off the TV.
Yeah, seriously.
Fortunately, a lot of these appear early in the series and kind of mostly disappear as it goes on.
And that disappearance is significant, we think, to how we interpret this. And we'll get into that later. But it's definitely 100% offensive. If there's somebody watching who has experienced something like that, it could make her feel sick. Mm-hmm. So that's why I really prefer not to use that kind of thing as comedy. It kind of removes the dignity of a person who might have already felt violated.
Dog has a nosebleed. God says, isn't that funny? Next.
All right, camera angles. One of the things that the Japanese otaku fanboy really, really loves is the idea of having that power over the lead female. She doesn't know that he can see it, but he has the power to see everything.
Yes. Ryuko is dashing off to kill or decapitate something, and is in the least vulnerable of positions, yet we see her from an incredibly vulnerable angle.
And you see that all over the place in ecchi or fan servicey anime, is that it's not usually the girl going, I'm going to show you everything, but rather she's going about her business, and the camera zooms in. So it gives that, it not only is giving people a peek of something they want to see, but it gives them a sense of power over the character, because her agency is not involved in what you're seeing.
Yes, there's something pretty insidious about it. And as a viewer who's aware of why they do these things are very deliberate. It's another thing that'll make very many people uncomfortable. And it's not anywhere on the feminist spectrum. It sucks. And yeah, this. Sometimes rape can be used effectively as drama, and Satsuki overcoming the sexual abuse of her mother, I think, is actually a very good character standpoint for her. Do I think they kind of overdid it with the spankings and the weirdness? Yeah, I think they kind of did.
One of the problems here is that while rapist drama can occasionally work, especially if the audience is going to get something of a warning beforehand. Like, let's look at Utena. Okay, there was like rapey type stuff as drama there, but it was discretionary. There was nothing discretionary about the way this was shot. It was in your face. It was extended scenes. It was done for that guy. You know that it was at least a little bit reaching out to that guy who gets off on that kind of thing, or they would have and could have shot it differently like they did in Utena.
I think it was partially, like I said, a good point of drama for the character, but yeah, they went a little too far. It did make Ragyo the most detestable parent figure in the history of recent anime. We're moving on from that because that's pretty uncomfortable, to debatable things, and we're going to come back to the outfits.
All right, the outfits. Here's why we think they're debatable. Subversion. You guys familiar with subversion? It's kind of like the sister of deconstruction, right? Subversion is basically when it looks like something's going to happen, and you're expecting it because you've been trained to expect it, but then it doesn't happen. Or if it does, it happens really differently than you expected.
Yeah, the website TV Tropes gives an example of two people moving a pane of glass across a road, a car zooming toward it. You're pretty certain the car's going to hit that pane of glass and everything's going to stop, but they just walk past anyway. Or the car just drives right through it and it doesn't break. Something that you weren't expecting to happen is what happens instead.
So basically, you can get the next slide. I just did.
We believe Kill la Kill takes those outfits and subverts their intent.
It subverts their intent. So, yeah, they're not actually doing it's not like their outfit gets more clothes as they get on, but it's rather that as they keep going, the lack of clothes matters less because you're desensitized to it. It kind of calls into question the whole, why were you so turned on by this in the first place? This is just how they are.
So, looking at the history of women who transform by getting completely naked, that started with Cutie Honey, in which all of her clothes shred to pieces, and she turns into something that's better at fighting. There's Devil Hunter Yoko on the other side. Yes, that's the middle of a transformation sequence. She looks really surprised. And I forget what that other show is, but I don't think I need to say anything. Those are children, and they're naked.
This gets back a bit into the idea of agency and the male gaze camera angles.
Yes, that vulnerability.
When these ladies are being, stripped and transforming and all that, they're floating. They don't seem to have much control over what's going on. They're like leaning back.
Look at Yoko. Oh my!
I know. You could say that there's a little bit of agency in Cutie Honey there, but she's still kind of floating. She's still sort of wrapped up in the moment. And
she doesn't always look that fierce in the transformation.
Yeah, she usually doesn't. So, one of the things that it changes in Kill la Kill, show the next slide, there's agency there.
There's power there.
There's a lot of power there. You're expecting it to be the same beautiful, I get to watch this lady be helpless through her naked transformation. And it's more like they're going, I'm gonna do this! And they have like the big teeth come down and they're like...
Dragon made out of lasers flies into the sky, and chomps down on them, they explode out of there. Boobs do not flap in the wind like that.
But you still get the sense, there is no sense that these girls are lost in the moment, are unaware of what's going on, are being taken in by higher power. They are staring the viewer down, being like, I dare you to try to fuck with me. Excuse my language.
My ears.
Panel's canceled, she blew it. Another thing about these outfits is how ridiculous they look. This is not the first time anime has done this, not by a long shot. Usually, the characters don't question, why am I dressed like this after they transform? They just hop right into battle.
They're just like, oh, okay.
Sometimes if they do, they get a throwaway answer, oh, this is what the gods used to wear, or something like that.
And they go, oh.
And that's it. No one ever addresses it again, because we all understand that's there for us to look at, not for any other reason. But Kill la Kill does give a reason.
Maybe a whole episode worth of reason.
Episode 3, which in the beginning, a lot of people took issue with.
Because it felt to many people, and I understand why, just like an excuse for this. The thing is, a lot of other shows have made much flimsier excuses for the same kind of thing. Why is Kill la Kill going to so much trouble to make this a whole episode and a half worth of talking about it? And I think that's because they actually do have something somewhat valid to say about our ideas of the female body being something that needs to be hidden.
Yes.
Why the female body? Why is it okay for a guy to go around wearing whatever, little as he wants? Why is that empowering for a guy and it's supposed to be shameful for a woman?
Yes, and episode 3 has each of these young women coming to a reason why she decides to don this ridiculous thing. Each one is different dependent on the personality of the character and their goals. And we'll start with Satsuki and Junketsu. In episode 3, when Satsuki first puts on Junketsu, which means purity, Ryuko tries to fight her. Ryuko cannot transform Senketsu all the way due to her embarrassment of how she looks. Satsuki is about to lay the smackdown on her, and Ryuko mocks her, not only because the outfit is named Purity, but because she looks like that.
And I just want to point out, the whole women mocking other women for looking too slutty, that's a patriarchy thing. The whole idea that women have to take each other down and shame each other for being women who are showing that they are women.
Or showing off their bodies. It turns us against each other. It's not a good thing. Satsuki, thank you. Satsuki immediately replies, telling Ryuko that she's the one who's pathetic for allowing herself to be held back by the views and judgments of a society and not following her own. Satsuki proceeds to kick Ryuko's ass some more until the episode goes on. And
remember, this is kind of stark coming from a country that's all about conformity, where in actual society, women are expected to be very pure and like never let anything bad show unless they're going to go ahead and live a shameful life.
But Satsuki is not a member of society. She is the creator of societies. And she won't let anything stop her from her goals.
She rejects all preconceived notions that somebody would put upon her to inhibit her.
That's right. And in that moment, she even redefines purity, which has been a word in cultures across the world used to oppress and hold back women. Women must remain pure, women can't dress like that, women can't have sex before marriage, etc. They must remain pure. Even their personalities have to be good and pure. Satsuki says her purity doesn't come from her sexuality or from what she's wearing, but from her ambitions, her actions. Nothing will stop her from what she wants. Not what she has to wear, not what she has to do. That is purity. That pure ambition, that pure drive.
She's taking a sense of purity that's generally reserved for male characters as a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she's making it hers.
She took purity back in that moment. That was the moment where I really, really started to like her. I already did, but...
All right, and next slide. Now, Ryuko has a different reason that she comes to this term. And I think it's still similar to the whole idea that a woman shouldn't have to be ashamed of her body and who she is and feel like she has to bow down to society making her feel bad about herself. And for her, Senketsu is like a second skin.
Yes, Senketsu represents a part of Ryuko's self, a part that she instantly rejected once it attached itself to her. So that manifests in the embarrassment for the, how she looks, but it's more about what Senketsu represents as to her past. I believe Senketsu is a representation of Ryuko's past and what she has yet to reconcile.
And in this case, being okay with who she is as herself, having that confidence, does make her stronger. So it has that symbolic representation. Just like if I start dressing a different way out of being self-conscious, out of not wanting to purely be myself, I'm not as strong a person. People are less attracted to me because I have less confidence. Her show of confidence gives her power.
Yes, every time Ryuko accepts a new thing about herself, her bond with Senketsu grows stronger, and they become physically more powerful. As soon as she begins to realize that, Senketsu is able to transform fully, and she and Satsuki can stand on equal ground. You guys can see the symbolism, maybe?
She's at her lowest when she's not accepting herself and who she is. You guys remember when she rejects Senketsu, she, hits a wall and then goes berserker, and it is really bad. And I'm not going to get into that, but as an example.
I'd just like to say that both of those things we said, people can totally legit call bullshit on them if they want, but I think they're worth noting.
And the reason we think people can call bullshit is because there's still going to be plenty of that guy who are watching this.
That's that guy up there, by the way.
They're totally missing the empowering message that this has for many women, like the two of us. And they're just in it for the flapping boobs.
Yeah. The studio would like their patronage. It's money. It's views.
The studio is really getting the best of both worlds this way, which is part of why we consider it debatable, because the studio is throwing us a bone and throwing them a bone at the same time and getting both of our money.
So what this slide is saying is that anime has become even more niche. It always has been niche. It might be getting a little bit better now, but a few years before Kill la Kill came out, it was pretty bad. There were a lot of moe shows coming out, a lot of shows geared towards pretty creepy guys, things that had more of that insidious fan service, things that didn't respect women or little girls very much at all. Things like Attack on Titan were far less common because those have an all-encompassing appeal. As you can see, Attack on Titan swept both hemispheres of fandom, but that generally wasn't what anime was going for, because it didn't really have the confidence to appeal to that many people successfully.
And we look at the things that are really remembered from the 70s through the 90s, were the things that were not as based on fan service and appealing to that guy. And one reason anime is getting a little bit of a renaissance is partially because of shows like this and Attack on Titan, which are just like, I am more interested in telling an intense story than catering to the guy who has a basement full of figurines.
So the guys at Studio Trigger have been in the industry since the 80s at the latest, I think. They know all of this. They've been dealing with the industry for years. People in the industry don't necessarily want to make things for a very small audience who only likes certain things, but they have to if they want to keep making money. So, remember that thing about Trigger's history? They love to turn things all the way up until they become something different, just like Gurren Lagann did with the giant robot genre.
Or kind of like how Penny and Stocking was playing with the moe thing and then turning it on its head.
And it made it downright offensive.
Yeah, it was great.
Not necessarily in a bad way. So we believe that Studio Trigger and Kill la Kill did this with fan service, with nudity, and revealing outfits. By the time we get to this point in the series, where Ryuko is riding a phallic motorcycle, completely naked, into the crotch of an evil business suit, we're like, yeah, it's deep. We completely accept this. We're not like, that looks really weird. We don't even think that anymore. We're immersed.
Well, I kind of thought that about the motorcycle, you know. But in general, as the series gets on, more and more of the cast gets more and more naked. And it doesn't matter because the camera angles are different. Is this a really fan servicey camera angle? Most of the time when she's wearing this sheet, the parts where her skin show are just incidental to the movement. We're not getting a lot of fan servicey shots anymore because what matters is what she's doing and the story. And we're starting to question ourselves, thinking, am I the pervert?
Is that me she's driving a motorcycle into the crotch of?
No, you know what I mean. Am I the pervert? Like, why was I sexualizing her all along? This is actually about her being a really powerful person. Why did I decide that that outfit was so raunchy and sexual? I'm actually the pervert to be putting that judgment down.
That's right. So, instead of using the fan service to tantalize people, as it always has been, it's basically being thrown unceremoniously around in violent situations.
You guys are familiar with the psychological idea of habituation. When you are exposed to something over and over again, you get used to it and it ceases to have novelty or titillation and whatnot. And this is basically removing the titillating sexual aspect from nudity.
So on one hand, everyone in the show gets naked. A lot. That's in your face a lot. On the other hand, nobody was thinking about that. Remember, nobody was thinking about sexy stuff by the time it gets to the end and everyone's all naked in a pile.
And everyone's just like, get him!
No one. I mean, everyone's sitting in Gamagori's naked hands. We have a slide of that later. And they're all naked too, and all their butts are touching, and we're all just like, that's so sweet.
You just made me think of Tina Belcher there, okay? And everyone touched everyone's butts.
And on that note, we're going to move on to things that are toast animals.
All right. The characters and their roles. Let's look at our anime history. How often do we have a character that has the same personality, backstory, and actions as Ryuko and is a girl?
I was about to say all the time until you said and is a girl.
How often do we have a character who is the antagonist turn protagonist?
The general, the honorable leader, creator of societies who nobody messes with except
The
that
will
one
of that general is greater than anyone else's and has an agenda that's higher than everyone else's. Oh, and is a girl.
There's the catcher.
Yeah.
These roles are seen all the time. They're cliches at this point, but they are almost always given to men. And in this situation, they're given to women. Not only that, but kind of unquestioningly.
Nobody goes, oh, you're pretty strong for a woman. No one says that at any point. And nobody goes, oh, I've been defeated by a girl.
I'm gonna take you down a few notches, you uppity woman. Nobody says that.
And there is, it's really refreshing for us as feminists. I think that, I don't know for sure, like you mentioned, the Japanese culture is different. I don't know if they were thinking, I'm going to be feminist and make this different, but they at least thought it was refreshing, because we do have an interview where they say,
refreshing is the word they use.
We think that it is refreshing that this is done with female characters instead of the usual male characters. So there's at least a novelty that's appealing to the Japanese, even if they're not on a social justice quest like we are.
That's right. Even the role of Ragyo was originally going to be male. She was going to be Satsuki's evil father. But they decided to change that, first of all, because the abuse she inflicts on Satsuki would have been even worse coming from a guy, and also because they thought having this conflict between a triad of women was much more interesting than having a male involved in part of this powerful struggle.
Nonetheless,
all right.
We're missing something.
Back.
One of the things that makes it totally feminist, in my opinion, is the fact that this show is not, however, devoid of strong male characters. There are strong male characters. Originally, they were going to have the protagonist and all of the four be female.
Yes,
Gamagor was a girl.
I have seen the designs of the female Gamagor.
It was kind of like, I mean, and it's hot, but I think it actually makes a better feminist message with it being that men and women are equal, neither questions the fact that one or the other can be equal, and it's not this strange, otherworldly society where the women have gone over the men.
Yes, because that's not feminist.
That's not feminist, and that makes it more in the realm of fiction. It's like, we can discount these strong female characters because it's so silly that there'd be a society where men are so weak.
Yes.
Men are still strong here, so we can imagine this as a reality. We can imagine this as something that we can go for in our society.
And the writer in this interview that we've cited a couple of times, he said that even though the most powerful three characters were all female, he said they specifically wanted to avoid having the male characters seem weak. He said he wanted to make sure that he portrayed accurately that every male character was fighting to the best of his ability, no matter what that was.
And it was pretty good ability.
Yeah, it was. Speaking of which, that ass.
Yeah. This was nice because in most shows aimed at, this was a seinen, right?
So it's still annoying, but probably.
Seinen basically means it's aimed at men, like 18 and up type of thing, whereas shonen is aimed at, the teenage boys and younger. And like a lot of the moe shows are seinen because they're aimed at men who want to see fan service. And I can't think of any guy who wants to see moe stuff who really wanted to see that.
That, especially the upper left.
Yeah, that one right there. And it was really nice that the fan service was totally equal opportunity. Everybody was turned into fan service, and therefore everybody was turned into not fan service.
As the show went on, and more characters were put in that vulnerable position of being completely nude in front of a bunch of people. To pilot a DTR, you had to be in that position. That's pretty vulnerable looking, despite the glowing taint right there.
That actually gave the whole premise that, clothes were something foreign that was brought here by yada yada yada, we're all humans. It gave that message more validity by having it be experienced by the males in the cast as well.
Like I said, once you get to this shot, you don't care that they're all naked. You're more focused on the characters. Male, female, convoy, life fiber, dog, whatever. This was a big, important moment of connection for all the characters, and all of their boundaries, their clothing is gone. This show was primarily, they have said, a show about the relationship between humans and clothing. That was one of the reasons they chose women as the central cast members, because clothes are imposed more upon women. We are forced to consider what we wear a little bit more than guys are, sometimes a lot more.
Something that I think is particularly noteworthy is how not only is the audience experiencing this desensitization to sexualizing people by how much clothes they are or aren't wearing, but you can see that the characters are modeling that. Look at Mr. Mankanshoku, right? He was #1 up there with oogling Ryuko based on what she was wearing or how little she was wearing. He was like, she was going to take a shower, he was going to be there to try and pee. He doesn't care now. He is not thinking at all about getting off on any of this.
And don't worry, touching his butt. He deserves that.
And so he's learned his lesson about not over-sexualizing these people based on how much they're wearing, because everyone's a person and everyone is nude in the end.
We're also going to talk a little bit about equal opportunity power. Like we said before, male characters weren't knocked down to being nothing. Look at those faces. And then we had that one character, Nui. She was a bona fide troll. She godmodded through the entire show, dressed in a loli dress.
Freaking Azula.
So basically your power level had nothing to do with how you looked in this show. Relationships and portrayal of different relationships between women and sometimes men is very important to feminism in the media.
Who's heard of the Bechdel test?
Oh, good.
That's about half of you. That's great. For those of you who don't know, the Bechdel test was
usually for films.
It's usually for films. It was invented by an awesome lady comic artist. You should look her up and check her stuff out. But I digress. It's basically, does this film have at least 2 women? And do they talk to each other for 5 minutes?
No, just talk to each other.
About something that is not men. As in, like, not dating men, not the man who's beating me, not the Lifetime movie. You know,
a ridiculous amount of movies fail that test.
Yes, most movies fail that test.
The entire Lord of the Rings saga failed that test.
Oh, yeah. And while it's not as impressive for a TV show to pass that test, because a TV show is a series, what is impressive is that every single 24-minute segment, every single episode passes that test with flying colors in this show.
Mm-hmm. And we run the gamut of relationships between women and men, starting with women as rivals. Not something often seen outside of a romantic situation.
I know, you usually get like the whole Mean Girls thing, and you know, that has its place and all, but it's really interesting to see women as rivals with ambitions over things that people have ambitions about.
Fighting for their ideals. 2 clashing ideals, one staring down from the top, one gazing up from the bottom. Ryuko wants to find her father's killer. Satsuki wants a whole lot of stuff. The 2 of them clash in the middle. It has nothing to do with what girls usually fight over on TV, and especially in anime.
There's 2 women as sisters, and while I'm really grateful to Frozen for, you know, exploring
to remind people that women have sisters.
Like, they don't quite get an A+ from me for that, because they spend the whole movie being like, is it going to be about romance? Is it going to be about romance? But here, they just explore the sister dynamic pretty straight up without it having to be, oh, and the sisters had an argument because one liked a boy.
Yeah, once the two of them discover their sisters, at first, it's quite a shock. They come to terms with it, and their relationship actually grows quite strong with that knowledge. One of the things Satsuki was fighting for was revenge for the baby sister that she thought was dead. Satsuki probably instantly lost all animosity towards Ryuko once she realized that was the person who she was trying to avenge. Her dear little sister. And we also have women as friends. Female friendships are really, really important to feminism. The representation of them is they're often very overlooked and seen as less valuable as relationships between men or romantic relationships between women and men.
Like, oftentimes in shows, you'll just see there's a lead character girl, right? And she's the love interest of the guy, and there are some friends that she has in the background who chitter and only talk to her about the guy. Right? They only serve to make her think about her maybe relationship with this guy.
Ryuko and Mako's relationship is warm, it's family-like, the two of them grow on each other very quickly. Mako gives Ryuko a place she can call home, and watching them interact is always very heartwarming. On the other side, we have Satsuki's friendship with Nonon, which is much colder and much more silent, but it goes back into their past. And you can see that Satsuki is the only one Nonon actually calls by name. Nonon avoids calling anyone by name, if a lot of you probably noticed. She usually comes up with a nickname for somebody.
A mean one.
Just calls them by their last name. She will call Satsuki Satsuki-chan. And at some point of where Satsuki's in danger of her life, she even drops the chan, which is very important, and just calls her Satsuki. So it's subtleties like that show how close the two of them are, to contrast how overtly close Mako and Ryuko are. It's two different kinds of friendships, they're both very meaningful, and they're both represented. And I appreciated that greatly.
Another thing that I appreciate so much is the idea that men and women can be friends.
Oh my God.
What? You mean ladder theory isn't 100% valid? There are some wonderful male-female friendships here between Gamagori and Satsuki, Gamagori and Mako, although he has a crush on her. Yes! He's got a pretty adorable crush on her, but in his relationship with Satsuki, there is no crush. There's just mad respect, and he's just super, super, into helping her achieve her goals.
He and the other members of the Elite Four were inspired, helped, anything by her so powerfully that they have, and she has their undying loyalty. That's her relationship to all of her Elite Four members, regardless of gender. That's usually not the case. They don't even slip anything in there about any of them having the hots for her.
None of them. It was amazing.
It almost seems impossible to do, so I was shocked. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is.
When you look at almost any show, if a guy and a girl start talking on screen, everybody, all of you probably, no, not just I ship it, but all of you probably are wondering, are they going to be an item? Are they writing them together to be an item? Because you almost never see a man and a woman talking on screen that are not already taken, that don't end up getting written together, at least for a permanent relationship or for one that'll break up eventually.
There's no sexual tension, basically.
Yeah, and that is so refreshing. I am such an advocate for male-female platonic friendships. You have no idea, and so I really love this show for that.
As I've covered already, Ryuko and Senketsu's relationship is also, it can be seen as a friendship between her and her male piece of clothing. And it's also nice because he being clothing, he has no sexuality. He doesn't ever make any remarks like, I'm on your boobs. No, he just annoyingly reminds her what her BMI is and things like that. And he's also seen as sort of a reflection, I believe, of her past. That's why he looks like her father. That's why every time she reconciles something about her really messed up past, she takes another step with him and achieves a new ability with him.
So he's simultaneously a relationship with a woman's relationship with her past, a woman's relationship with her father, a woman's relationship with herself.
Yes, and since all of those things, except herself, have to be left in the past, that is why he has to leave her in the end.
And the last one, which I admit I have a bias of passion for, but relationships between women that are romantic. I find it hard not to interpret the end game for Ryuko and Mako as anything but. I think that it's a case of them calling us out a little bit on the hetero lens. We keep trying to push male and female characters together and make them not just friends, but actually a relationship. And here I think it's a case where they kiss, they say they're going to go on a date, and it's not just the silly hallelujah moment, because for the first time, Ryuko is brought into the hallelujah and gets a kiss. It's one of the only times we see Ryuko in the hallelujah. After that, she references it during the big fight where they go down. And that's the big trope. The guy who's going on to do the final battle, she says, I'll marry you, kiss you, blah, 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 when you get back, so please come back alive. And he goes, all right. And then he fights the bad guy and says, and the bad guy says, oh, you're going to die. And the good guy says, oh, I'm not going to die because I have a date to go on. I have a kiss to get. I have to get laid. And that's what gets him through the final conflict. And he comes back, and then he does get laid or get married or go on a date.
Except Kamina.
Except Kamina. Oh, that was an excellent subversion, right? You were expecting him to come back, and then he didn't. You only once. At any rate, we have Ryuko, so therefore Ryuko's talking about it during the important final battle. Her mentor figure, what's the teacher's name again? Mikitsugi?
Yes.
Yeah. He references it as like, well, we better clean this up because those girls have a date to go on. I think it's so great that they're just playing girls who gradually fall in love straight without over-sexualizing it.
Yeah, lack of representation for homosexual women is also a feminist issue, and one that's often forgotten about and not addressed. So whether or not Kill la Kill meant it to be taken that way, I'm still glad that it was there. It just made me feel like they covered yet another base.
And it was really refreshing because when you look at Japanese stereotypes for girls that like girls, it's either they like each other, but they'll turn straight after they get out of school. That's what Yuri is they like each other, but they'll turn straight after they get out of school and they'll conform and get with a man, and the viewer don't have to worry about that. Or they're predatory lesbians. And while the show did have some predatory lesbians, I think that it balanced itself out by having these two fall in love naturally and be like, lesbianism is not necessarily a mark of someone who's evil.
I think it was most important that it was incidental to the plot. It just happened. It wasn't a focal point.
So nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, that's about it for what we have to say on our presentation.
Does anybody do we have time for questions?
Let me see. We have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes for questions. And if we're going to cut you off at that 5 minutes, but if you don't have your question answered yet, you can follow us to our table. You can buy our prints at our table.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
I guess one of the questions, I've been watching anime for a few years now, and it's always struck me that Japanese anime is much more sexualized than American anime. Americans got subtleties, and I grant you that they're not as pure as snow, but they're nowhere as overtly sexual. Why does anime get away with it in the United States when American, Felix the Cat all the way